I have an interesting story for anyone concerned about their First Amendment rights in the US and about the health of the principle of freedom of speech all across the Western world. Jeremy Kauffman is, according to Wikipedia, an American entrepreneur, political activist, a local supporter and activist within the Free State Project, and a former board member. Basically a libertarian entrepreneur and politician. And he posted this September 16th, yesterday, about the FBI visiting his house because of something he said online or tweeted, I don't know. The specific cause of this is not discussed in this video, we'll soon be seeing. But do remember, we've had similar things happening in Canada, in Britain, we'll be going over that too, where the authorities come to visit you for speech online that they admit is not illegal, but they still are concerned by it, and basically they want to discuss it with you, aka they're trying to intimidate you into stopping. And not that long after, a couple of years, then it becomes illegal and people are thrown in jail. Britain again. I think Canada has similar things too. Maybe Australia, certainly Germany and France. So let's watch the video. The audio is not that great, especially the FBI agent. They are barely audible, but I'll summarize at the end. Let's watch it.
Hi, how can I help you?
I'll skip until the moment they get there.
Is that sufficient to identify as only one O'Donnell affiliated with the FBI? Could you please say your full name, sir? No, it's First Amendment right. What's your name, sir? Absolutely not. You can show me your name and identification number.
They're constantly asking him to stop recording, and he says, no, it's my First Amendment right, and they don't really have a response.
Oh, I'm gonna get back inside my house. Oh, this is going out right after you guys walk away. So you can show me your name ID, you can walk away. I'm not going to talk to people who claim to be federal agents unless they can show me identification. I need to see, is your full name on that badge? I'd like.
So he wants, so far, just for them to identify themselves before they get to have any sort of discussion officially with him as federal agents, which is fair enough. All they have is badges that don't have their ID on them, so you can't know if they belong to them or if they're even relevant here.
I'd like to see something with your full name or I'm not going to talk to you. This will be going online as soon as you walk away. Well, I want to talk.
He said, all I want to do is talk to you about a post that was made and I couldn't hear the rest of it.
To you about you guys coming here. Say you make a salary of, I don't know what, low 100K? You guys making six figures? Factor in 50% expenses, overhead, maybe 100% expenses. Talking about burning a couple $100 an hour just here, let alone all the time you guys are spending to investigate something that you know is not against the law, right? Like you're familiar with. So then why would you come?
They are admitting nothing he said or did was against the law. Non-crime hate incidents are ruled to be part of public order in the UK. I'll show you the article about that and the check your thinking, because I think that was the most iconic moment of it in Britain, back when it was controversial to check a citizen's thinking. But just the gall to come to your house and want to talk to you about something you did which wasn't illegal as federal agents, as law enforcement.
Oh. No, you're coming because you're part of a regime that
So we wanted to make sure there were no threats. You've done nothing wrong, but we wanted to make sure there were no threats. So we perceived that you might be a threat in the future, maybe, based on the fact that you've said something we don't like on social media, because he didn't incite violence against anyone. If he did, it would be a crime. So what exactly could you possibly say that would imply that you might become a criminal? I wonder. I mean, we're not far from pre-crime, you know? Where basically we think you're going to commit a crime, so we'll arrest you beforehand, before you can even do it. The idea that if you had all the information and camera footage every moment of everyone's life, then you could just stop crime before it happened, is exceedingly Orwellian. There's a certain limit on what you should sacrifice for safety. And I think that we are far past that limit and approaching the edge of the cliff on that front.
Does this kind of thing when you know laws aren't being broken. That's an embarrassment, man. Didn't you guys read the Constitution? Do you not believe in America? Like, how do you do your jobs and go home? You're walking away. Because nothing we did is against the law, and you guys are fuckheads that try to act like bullies. And I hope you go home and aren't embarrassed. You can't even say your name on camera because you know that what you're doing is embarrassing. You know Americans that believe in the Constitution think you're laughable. And you go home and you think about what you did today. Go home and think about it, you coward. Drive away.
And that's...
You know?
That's all there is to it, my friends. I have to say, it's sad. Law enforcement coming to your house, refusing to identify, wanting you to stop recording because what they're doing is embarrassing. What they're doing is not something that they want the public to see them doing. They're not proud to be going about their duties as law enforcement. We've seen an awful lot of government wanting to do things in the dark. Just the entire Elon Musk Brazil thing, if you remember, where the Supreme Court essentially, what's the name of that judge that everybody was comparing to whatever villain, Darth Vader or Voldemort or whatever? Something of Alex, I think? I forgot his name. Anyway, so that guy was basically ordering Elon Musk to go against the Brazil law and shut down the opposition on Twitter, on X, and not give any reason. So the government essentially ordering social media to secretly ban the opposition and pretend it's their own decision and not give a reason. Why are governments doing so much behind the scene that there has no reason for it? It's one thing if you're saying, well, this involves confidential information that could be harmful if released to the public, like the name of your spies in hostile nations, or the nuclear launch codes, something, technology that's being kept secret. No. What you're doing here is you're harassing and banning and jailing the opposition. You're not willing to tell us why you are doing it, what they've done wrong. You're not willing to be accountable, to show your face, to tell your name, to do it openly for all to see. What happened to justice is supposed to be all about being for all to see, that it was just, that you are acting in accordance with the law and with morality. Otherwise, who gave you the authority to do so? You are enacting justice in the name of the people, the citizens. They're supposed to be the sovereign. The law of the land is supposed to be for the citizens, by the citizens. They elect representatives. They don't have to, give power to some sort of authoritarian leader that does whatever they want. The whole point of the entire exercise in democracy is that everything should be by the will of the people, and they should be able to hold you accountable. And to just go around enacting essentially new laws that you don't even openly vote for, because nobody voted for the police to be able to come to your home, or the FBI to be able to come to your home and start harassing you about something you said online. that isn't illegal according to the law. Nobody decided that that was a good idea except the people in power. They unilaterally decided it, and they sent their, jackboots, their stormtroopers, to their opposition. And he's not, the main opposition is not conservative, but he's libertarian, and that's enough. I don't think it even matters whether you are left or right, so long as you're against the establishment and your voice is significant, or could be significant, could make any sort of difference. You don't even have to be that influential. Just you're on their radar, and that's enough. You will be harassed, you will be banned, and yes, you might even be taken to court or jailed. This is the story about Harry Miller that was visited by police to check his thinking. That's the quote. And the court ruled in his favor, but that was in 2020. Since then, we've come a long way, and many people are jailed for things they say on Twitter, on social media in general, in Britain today. This is just a couple of years down the line for America, if the Democrats win, in my opinion. I think this is definitely coming. And even worse, you might end up like in Germany, where the government floated the idea to ban the elected far-right, quote-unquote, party after a scandal, the AfD, right? They have been saying that multiple times that they want to ban the AfD. They've been considering it for a while. That scandal from the 20th January is just another excuse they found to do so. It was a meeting between senior AfD figures and what they call neo-Nazi influencers. They may be, I have no idea, I haven't investigated it. They also had members of the center-right Christian Democrats, the party of former Chancellor Angela Merkel. That's claims that are being examined by party officials, at least, according to this article. Again, it's a bit old. There may be news on this story. I just pulled whatever was on top of the search, because the point of it was to show you that the entire West is going down this road of shutting down opposition, political opposition. In the end, the entire discussion, what was it? Toppling the government? Or were they discussing how to stage a coup, terrorist attacks? What exactly were they discussing? Discussions allegedly focused, quote, on so-called re-immigration, the removal of millions of asylum seekers, non-assimilated people, and those with non-German backgrounds, even if they hold residency rights and citizenship. So essentially, the discussion was, can they essentially kick out of the country people who are either there illegally or have temporary permits or were given citizenship by the last government or few governments against the will of the people, according to them. Now, you might say that they are wrong, but I think if you check polls all over the West, since essentially mass migration began, I don't think a single poll ever said we want more migration, the majority. I think most people always said less migration. I think the entire promise before they started mass migration was that it would be a small amount of people that would be vetted. There was never an election where the winners just declared beforehand, we are running on opening the borders to millions and millions and millions of immigrants. Everybody always said, well, yeah, there'll be immigration, but it will be controlled, it will be limited. The idea that's just open borders is what you're running on. Maybe in the last year, people started openly saying, I'm not talking about activists. I know activists have been saying it for a while now. I know far left protests have been saying it for a while now. But mainstream politicians, if you look, even Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Biden, not in the last term, beforehand, they all used to say that they wanted borders. Before, let's say, the 2016 election, they all said they wanted borders. It's relatively recent, the whole thing, that you just open the borders. And yes, people will be saying, we did not consent to this. The government gave you citizenship against our will. You might say you can't roll it back now, I'm not sure. If the government decides tomorrow to legalize violent crime, or to essentially crown someone king, give away half the state's lands, I don't know, do something crazy, can you say, well, it's your duly elected government, you can't roll it back? I don't think so. It won't hold water. There's no way. So it's not as though there is some sort of unshakable ideal that says anything that the elected government does cannot be reversed. The question only is to what degree? When did the government go too far? When did the government betray the trust that was placed in it, betray the promises to the public? And where is the limit of harm that the public is willing to endure from such things before they essentially topple the existing government, induce a new one, and say, we are reversing your policies? It's not impossible. It's not unreasonable. The only question is it far enough now to require such an admittedly extreme solution? And you might say, no, of course not. And these members of the AfD and what was it, Christian center-right Christian Democrats, they might say, well, maybe. And fair enough, have a discussion about it. But banning them from politics over it seems. Don't you think it's ridiculous? I think it's ridiculous. Not to mention, like I said, it's not as though this is a new idea that was introduced after they found out the extreme discussions. They've been saying it for a while now, essentially since the AfD started gaining prominence. They've been trying to throttle their ascension in any way possible. It's the same with Marine Le Pen, it's the same with Canada and Trudeau. It's the same basically with all of those, left, they call themselves sometimes even center-left or centrist parties that are very establishment. They essentially are always in line with the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, the UN, these sorts of international bodies, Soros's Open Society Foundation and stuff like that, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The same faces, the same names are always in agreement on pretty much everything. And they somehow always find themselves against populists, against, the men on the street, the working class usually, the people that have to live with the results of their policies, and mainly the politicians that enact these policies have no children, which is important because they don't have skin in the game. They don't have a stake in the future of the country. It doesn't matter how bad things will get in 10, 20, 30 years if you are a 60, 70-year-old politician with no kids. It's something that used to be unthinkable. It used to be that you had to be a family man, you had to have stake in society, skin in the game, they were saying. Because otherwise, well, what's stopping you from pursuing short-term policies that are harmful long-term in order to amass power now, amass support now, and, tomorrow, who cares? They just don't seem to care at all about popular support at this point. It doesn't really matter whether we're talking about bad political ideas or whether we're talking about bad cultural ideas. Just anything that is unpopular gets pushed anyway in all spheres of life, whether it's about food, trying to make you eat things that you don't want to. The crickets and the bugs are the most famous, but there is a war on basically all animal products like milk, eggs, etc., fish. And it's the same when it comes to entertainment, it's the same when it comes to driving. There's a lot of push to minimize the amount of vehicles on the road, try and get people to either share cars or use public transport, anything to get you off the road. And you might say, well, it's not necessarily a bad thing to have less vehicles on the road, but having a private vehicle represents freedom, If you go on public transport, you can only go where public transport allows. A private vehicle, you can go anywhere. And especially now that it's become, at least I know in my country, impossible to just, hop on a bus and buy a ticket. You have to use your cell phone or a special pass. And of course, these are easily tracked. They want the information on the movement of every citizen, and they want to be able to dictate the limits of that movement. The idea of 15-minute cities is pretty much similar. You don't need to move outside of the boundaries we set you. Well, just put everything you need within reach, and you'll be forbidden to travel. It used to be forbidden to travel during the medieval ages, right? The medieval period. You had essentially people becoming property of whoever was ruling the area, and you had to acquire a permit to request permission from your ruler, whatever nobleman held the land you were living on, in order to step outside of his domain. We are awfully quick in returning to feudalism here. No privacy, no right to travel, no freedom of speech, no right to self-defense. I honestly feel as though these are the basic rights. They're talking about basic human rights like healthcare and housing. You don't have a right to healthcare. Healthcare is the result of somebody building that hospital, somebody training to be a doctor, somebody creating, manufacturing the tools needed for the profession. Whether it's the medicine or the surgery knives or everything else. And all of these people are not your slaves. They work for themselves. You need to compensate them for it. You don't have a right to healthcare. We can create a system that provides healthcare in return for resources because somebody needs a return on their hard work making healthcare for you. And the same for houses. What you do have is rights for things that you naturally have that somebody else may try to take away from you, like the ability to speak your mind. If you're alone in the forest, you can't speak your mind. You can defend yourself from any animal that comes along or another person that tries to attack you for whatever reason. You can move around. There's nothing to stop you from leaving whatever place you are in and wandering away. These are your basic rights: self-defense, freedom of speech, freedom of movement. But these are exactly the rights that are being cracked down upon, whereas new fake rights are being invented that really depend on the government and make you depend on the government for everything. Have you ever noticed that despite the fact that they have all the time and resources in the world to crack down on some libertarian politician, but somehow they can't protect the opposition candidate for, oh, I don't know, leader of the free world, president of the United States? Somehow, they don't have the resources for that. They do a very shoddy job of it. 2 assassination attempts in 2 months. But we have enough for this. To ask you questions about what you said online that we admit is not a crime. It reminds me of UK jails being emptied of violent criminals to make space for people who demonstrate against the government. All of this behavior is textbook authoritarian stuff. Read Orwell, read Brave New World, all of it. 1-to-1. It's like they read all these books and decided these are the instruction manual for the new world that we are going to create. Fourth Industrial Revolution by Klaus Schwab. You can read that one too. Anyway, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.